The war had been burning for months across the stars. It was not meant to happen, not this soon and not in this way. The humans of the Terran Union had only recently begun to expand beyond their own small corner of the galaxy. They had built colonies on barren rocks, set up outposts around strange suns, and sent fleets into the dark unknown. But they had not been prepared for the Zereth Empire. The Zereth were old, far older than humanity. Their ships were carved with sharp edges, their soldiers wore armor like bone, and their empire stretched across a dozen star clusters. To them, humans were newcomers, fragile beings who dared to claim worlds already watched by ancient eyes. Captain Elias Hayes had not been the one to start the fight. He was a soldier, yes, but he was also tired. He had seen battles before, against pirates, against raiders, against desperate colonists who turned violent when food ran short. But this fight had been different. When his frigate, the Argus Dawn, stumbled upon a Zereth fleet near the mining world of Karos, no one expected it to end in fire. Yet within hours, plasma weapons lit up the void, and human hulls cracked under the heat of alien cannons. Elias remembered the moment clearly. The command deck shook under impact. Alarms screamed. Smoke rose from consoles. And through the broken viewport he saw the vast outline of the Zereth flagship, glowing like a blade against the stars. They never had a chance. The Argus Dawn was destroyed. Escape pods scattered like sparks in the dark. Elias fought his way to the launch bay, shielding younger soldiers, forcing them into pods until the deck tore apart beneath him. His pod drifted, burning through atmosphere, and he had no choice but to pray. He crash-landed on a world he did not know. The ground was red and cracked like old blood dried in the sun. Jagged cliffs rose in the distance and strange trees with silver leaves bent in the hot wind. Elias stumbled out of his pod, coughing, his arm pressed tight against his side. The plasma blast he had taken on the ship had torn through his armor, leaving his right arm scorched and bleeding. Every step hurt, but he moved. He was a soldier. Soldiers kept moving. He did not know how long he wandered before they found him. At first he thought he was seeing ghosts, shapes in the red haze, tall, thin, wrapped in armor that gleamed like black stone. Their eyes glowed faint green and each carried a spear tipped with humming light. Zereth soldiers. Elias lifted his rifle, but the weapon was cracked from the crash. He could barely raise it with his burned arm. He lowered it slowly, meeting their stares. They surrounded him, moving like hunters around prey. One jabbed a spear toward his chest and another hissed something in their own tongue. He didn't understand the words, but he understood the meaning well enough. Surrender or die. So Elias dropped the broken rifle. They bound his wrists with metal bands that tightened when he struggled. The wound on his arm burned worse than the bonds. He could smell his own blood on the dry air. The soldiers pushed him forward, forcing him to walk across the rocky plain toward a waiting skimmer, an alien craft with curved wings and glowing engines that hummed like deep voices. Inside, the air was cool, almost too clean. Elias sat on the floor as the Zereth soldiers stood around him, their spears angled, their faces hidden behind bone-like helmets. He wondered if they would kill him before they landed or if they had other plans. He stayed silent. A soldier's silence. The skimmer lifted, rising above the cliffs, and Elias caught his first glimpse of the city. It was not like human cities with their steel towers and shining glass. This city was alive. The walls seemed carved from the very stone of the cliffs, grown upward into shapes like thorns and spires. Bridges stretched across canyons and towers glowed faintly with blue fire. Ships moved like insects between landing pads, and at the heart of it all a palace rose, tall, sharp, and crowned with light. They were taking him to the queen. The Zereth queen was a mystery to humans. Rumors spread through fleets and colonies. Some said she was a goddess made flesh. Others said she was a tyrant who ruled with fear. No one had seen her and lived to speak of it. Now Elias, wounded and unarmed, was being carried into her halls. The palace gates opened with a deep sound like stone grinding. Inside, the air smelled of strange flowers. The walls were lit with soft veins of glowing crystal. Guards lined the halls, dozens of them, their spears rising in perfect rhythm as the skimmer passed. At last, the soldiers pulled him out and pushed him forward. His boots echoed on the polished black stone floor. His arm throbbed with every step, but he kept his head high. If this was the end, he would face it standing. They brought him into a vast chamber. It was not a throne room as he expected. It was a hall of silence. At its center rose a seat carved from living crystal, surrounded by flowing banners of deep silver and violet. And upon that seat the queen waited. She was not what Elias imagined. She was tall, yes, taller than him, her form elegant and alien. Her skin shimmered faintly, catching the light like water. Her eyes glowed like the stars he had lost in the crash. She wore armor that looked more like ceremonial robes, marked with symbols that seemed older than memory. Her voice, when she spoke, was calm and cold. Human. The soldiers pushed Elias to his knees. He tried to rise again, and a spear struck the floor beside his foot, humming with deadly energy. He did not flinch. The queen tilted her head, studying him. She seemed curious, not hateful. She rose from her throne and walked closer. Her steps echoed through the chamber, and the guards stiffened. Her gaze fell on his arm. The bandages of his torn armor had loosened. His wound was visible, burned, raw, and bleeding still. Human blood, dark red against pale skin. It dripped slowly onto the polished stone. The queen stopped. Her eyes widened slightly, and then, to Elias's confusion, she spoke a single command in her own tongue. At once, the guards dropped their spears. The clatter rang through the chamber. Some even stepped back, their glowing eyes fixed on the site of his wound. Fear rippled through them, sharp and sudden. Elias did not understand. Why would a simple wound frighten them? He looked up at the queen. She did not move away. She only stared at his blood, her expression unreadable. In that moment, Elias knew two things. One, he was still alive. For now. Two, whatever his wound meant to them, it was more than just an injury. It was something that shook even warriors of an ancient empire. The queen raised her eyes to his, and for the first time, Elias saw not just curiosity, but something deeper. Recognition and fear. The hall was silent. Only the soft hum of the alien crystals and the faint dripping of human blood echoed in the air. The spears that once threatened Captain Elias Hayes now lay scattered on the polished black floor. The Zareth guards stood frozen, their long bodies stiff, their glowing eyes wide with something that looked like fear. Elias did not move. He was too weak to rise quickly, and too cautious to act without knowing why his wound had shaken them so badly. His burned arm throbbed with fire, but he kept his back straight. If the queen wanted to frighten him, he would not give her that satisfaction. The queen stepped closer. Her presence filled the chamber. She was taller than Elias by nearly a head, her movements fluid yet commanding. Her silver and violet robes shimmered faintly as she walked, and her eyes never left his wound. She lifted a hand. The guards immediately dropped to one knee, lowering their heads. Not one dared to meet her gaze. It was as if the sight of human blood had reminded them of something ancient, something that lived deep in their history. Finally, the queen spoke in a voice that was calm, but carried weight like stone. "Rise, human." Elias pushed himself to his feet, slow and careful. His legs trembled from exhaustion, but he stood tall. His eyes met hers, and though his chest pounded, he did not look away. "You bleed fire," she said. Her words were accented but clear. Somehow she knew his language. "You bleed like the one from the old prophecy." Elias frowned. Prophecy. He did not know what she meant. To him his blood was just blood, red, ordinary, painful. But in the pale glow of the chamber's crystals it did look strange. His wound shimmered faintly, the blood almost glowing under the alien light. The queen's voice dropped lower. "They fear you because they remember. Our legends spoke of one who would come from the stars. A stranger. A warrior who would stand unbroken even when wounded. One who carried burning blood that no blade could truly silence." Elias felt a cold weight in his stomach. He had heard enough about alien religions and superstitions to know that prophecies were dangerous. They could turn a man into either a savior or a monster in the eyes of others. And he could see in the eyes of the guards, they believed. The queen gestured again. The guards quickly gathered their spears, but none dared raise them toward him. Instead, they formed a circle around the hall, their posture defensive, not aggressive. "You are no ordinary prisoner," the queen said. "You are something they fear." "And something I must understand," Elias swallowed. His throat was dry. "I'm just a soldier," he said. His voice was rough from thirst. "My ship was destroyed. My people are scattered. I don't know what your prophecy says, but I am no one special." The queen tilted her head. "Yet you stand here, wounded, unbroken, unafraid. Do you call that ordinary?" Elias did not answer. He had no strength for riddles. The queen gave a signal and 2 attendants hurried forward. They were smaller than the guards, wearing lighter robes that shimmered like silk. They carried a container shaped like a shell, glowing faintly from within. Without asking permission, they moved to Elias's side and touched his burned arm. He hissed at the sudden sting. "Hold," one of them said in a sharp but calm voice. They pressed the shell against his wound. A cool liquid flowed over his skin, seeping into the burn. The pain eased, but the strange sensation made him uneasy. The liquid hardened quickly, forming a thin cover over the wound. Elias glanced at the queen. "Why help me? I'm your enemy." She studied him with those glowing eyes. "Perhaps. Or perhaps you are more than that. My people believe your blood is a sign of danger, but She paused, her gaze sharpening. "I wonder if it is a sign of hope." Her words unsettled him. Hope was not a word he expected from a queen of an empire at war. The queen turned to her guards. She spoke to them in the Zareth tongue, her voice rising like a blade. Elias could not understand the words, but he understood the effect. The guards pounded their spears against the floor, the sound echoing like thunder. Then they filed out of the chamber, leaving only Elias, the queen, and her attendants behind. The hall felt emptier, yet heavier with silence. "You will remain here," the queen said. "You are not to be harmed. You are under my protection now." Elias blinked. Protection? That was not what he expected. He had thought they might execute him or throw him into a cell. Instead, she spoke as though he was some kind of honored guest or dangerous relic. "Why?" he asked simply. The queen stepped closer, so near he could see the faint shimmer of light across her skin. "Because the fate of my people may rest in the truth of who you are. If the prophecy is false, I will know it. If it is true," she stopped, her eyes narrowing slightly, "then everything we are may change." Elias felt a chill run through him. He did not want to be part of alien prophecies. He only wanted to survive, to find a way back to his people. But now it seemed survival meant stepping into something larger than himself. The attendants led him to a side chamber. It was not a prison cell. It was more like a guest chamber, though built in the alien style. The walls glowed faintly with living crystal veins. A low bed rested against one side, covered with fabric that shimmered like liquid silver. There was food waiting on a carved table. Strange fruits, glowing water in crystal cups. Elias sat on the bed, his body aching. His wound still throbbed, though the alien treatment dulled the worst of it. He touched the hardened cover on his arm, feeling the strange smooth surface. It was cool, yet strong, like stone and glass at once. He looked around the chamber. No guards inside, but the heavy doors were sealed. He was trapped, though not in chains. Exhaustion pressed down on him. He leaned back, closing his eyes. The images of the battle returned, the ship tearing apart, the screams of his crew, the fire in the dark. He had survived when so many had not, and now somehow his survival had placed him in the heart of his enemy's palace. His thoughts circled the queen's words. Prophecy. Burning blood. Change. He did not want to believe it. But the fear in the eyes of the guards had been real. Time passed, though Elias could not measure how long. The alien sky outside shifted in strange colors, moving from crimson dusk to silver night. The chamber glowed softly even without lamps. When the doors finally opened again, the queen herself entered. She did not bring guards this time, only one attendant who carried a scroll-like device. Elias sat up straight, forcing himself to hide his weakness. The queen stopped before him. "You do not sleep?" He gave a dry smile. "Hard to sleep in the palace of my enemies." Her lips curved slightly, almost like amusement. "Perhaps, but sleep will come when you no longer see us as enemies." Elias shook his head. "That may take longer than you think." The queen studied him for a long moment, then gestured to her attendant. The attendant unrolled the device. It glowed, revealing lines of text and images. Elias could not read the Zareth script, but the pictures told their own story. Figures carved in light. A warrior standing among flames, a hand dripping blood that glowed like fire, armies bowing in fear. A queen standing beside the figure. "This is the prophecy," she said quietly. "It speaks of one who comes from beyond the stars. A warrior who suffers but does not fall. One whose blood burns under the light of our world. His coming marks a time of choice, for destruction or for renewal." Elias's jaw tightened. He looked away. "I'm no savior. I'm no destroyer either. I'm just a man who lost his ship. The Queen stepped closer. Her eyes glowed brighter. Perhaps. But tell me, Elias Hayes of the humans, why did you not fall when others did? Why did you walk through fire when your body burned? Why do you stand before me now unbroken, when your people scattered like ash? Her voice was not accusing, but searching. Elias had no answer. He had lived because he refused to give up. Because soldiers did not stop until their last breath. But how could he explain that to an alien queen who saw destiny in his blood? I don't know, he said at last. The queen regarded him with a gaze that felt like it pierced deeper than skin. Then she nodded as if the answer itself mattered less than his honesty. You will stay here, she said. You will learn our ways, and I will learn yours. If the prophecy lies, we will know. If it is true, then the galaxy itself may change. She turned to leave. At the doorway, she looked back once, her silver robe catching the crystal light. And remember this, human. My guards fear you now. But I do not fear you. Not yet. The doors closed behind her, leaving Elias in silence once more. He sat there, his heart heavy. He was no savior, no prophecy, no chosen warrior. But the queen believed there was something in him worth fearing, or worth hoping for. And deep down, as he touched the strange glow of his wound, Elias began to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they were right. The chamber was silent again after the queen left. Elias Hayes sat on the edge of the strange silver bed, staring at the faint glow of his wound. The alien medicine had hardened over the burn like glass, but the blood beneath still pulsed with warmth. When he moved his arm, he thought he saw a dim shimmer as if light lived under his skin. He shook his head. It's just pain. Just the drugs they used. He didn't want to believe anything else. But he couldn't shake the image of the guards dropping their spears. They had looked at his blood as though it was not just human blood but something unnatural, something dangerous. And the queen? She hadn't looked at him with fear alone. She had looked at him with recognition, like a person seeing a figure from a story made real. Prophecy. Burning blood. A stranger from the stars. Elias sighed and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. He didn't want to be anyone's prophecy. He just wanted to go home. The next morning, or what he thought was morning since the alien sky shifted in strange colors, he was taken from his chamber. 2 attendants guided him through long corridors of glowing stone and living crystal. The palace was alive with activity. Servants carried scrolls and glowing shells. Guards in black bone armor moved in perfect rhythm. Everywhere he walked, eyes followed him. Some stared with curiosity, others with open fear. A few whispered to one another in the Zareth tongue. Words he couldn't understand, but he caught the tone. Uneasy, distrustful. They brought him into a smaller chamber, circular, with walls lined by carvings. Symbols of flames, stars, and tall figures stretched across the stone. At the center of the chamber, the queen waited. She did not sit on a throne this time. She stood near the carvings, her long hands resting lightly on the etched surface. When Elias entered, she turned, her silver robe flowing like water. Human, she said. Come, Elias stepped forward. His burned arm ached, but he kept his face steady. He would not limp before her. The queen gestured to the carvings. Do you see this? Elias studied them. The shapes were alien, yet clear enough. One showed a figure standing tall, a weapon in hand with blood dripping from the arm. The blood was carved with lines of flame. Around the figure, smaller shapes bowed low, spears dropped to the ground. He frowned. That looks familiar. The queen's eyes glowed brighter. It should. This is the prophecy I spoke of. Written before my empire rose, passed through generations. It tells of one who would come from beyond the stars. A warrior of fire. One who bleeds flame when struck. His presence would shake the balance of power. Some would fear him, others would follow. Elias shook his head. That's not me. That's just a story. A myth. The queen stepped closer. Yet when my guards saw your wound, they acted as this carving shows. They dropped their spears in fear. Do you call that coincidence? Elias clenched his jaw. I call it misunderstanding. The queen studied him in silence as though weighing his words. Finally, she spoke softly. Perhaps, or perhaps not. She led him around the chamber, showing more carvings. Some showed battles, flames spreading across alien skies. Others showed peace. 2 figures standing side by side, one crowned, one scarred. The prophecy does not end with destruction, she explained. It says the warrior of burning blood can bring ruin or renewal. It depends on choice. Elias crossed his arms. And you think I'm that warrior? The queen nodded once. I do, Elias laughed bitterly, though it hurt his ribs. I'm just a soldier. I don't even know if my people survived. I'm no savior. I'm no destroyer either. I'm just trying to stay alive. The Queen's gaze sharpened. And yet, staying alive when all odds are against you, that is what makes you dangerous. That is what makes you different. Her words cut deep. He remembered the flames of his ship, the cries of his crew. He had survived when many had not. But was that destiny or just cruel chance? Over the next days, the Queen summoned him often. Sometimes she asked him questions about humanity, how they fought, how they built, how they dreamed. Other times she showed him more of the Zareth history, their victories and their losses. Elias listened, but he also watched. He saw how the guards shifted uneasily whenever he walked past. He noticed how servants avoided coming too close, as though his presence carried some invisible weight. Even when he sat quietly, their eyes flicked to his arm, to the faint glow beneath the hardened cover. They believed the legend. Even if he did not. One evening, the Queen spoke to him in private. "You do not understand what your presence means," she said, her tone softer than before. "Then explain it," Elias replied. She walked to the window, where the alien sky burned with silver clouds. "My empire is not as strong as it appears. Factions rise within it. Some say I rule too long. Others say I have grown weak. The prophecy of the burning blood has been used before, whispered as a weapon. A warning that one day a stranger would rise and unseat us. That is why my guards feared you. To them, you are the living sign that the prophecy begins." Elias frowned. "And to you?" She turned back to him. "To me you are not yet enemy or savior. You are a choice. If I can shape the prophecy, perhaps it will not destroy us but renew us. Perhaps through you we can find strength that does not come from fear." Her words hung heavy in the chamber. Elias said nothing. He did not know what to believe. That night, Elias dreamed of fire. He dreamed of his ship breaking apart, of his crew calling his name, of blood glowing under alien skies. He woke in a cold sweat, his arm burning again under the hardened cover. He pressed it, and for a brief second the glow beneath brightened as if answering his touch. He stared at it, his heart racing. What if they're right? He thought. What if this wound is more than just blood? He shook his head. He could not allow himself to think that way. Prophecies were cages. He would not let one define him, but the palace was not safe. 2 nights later, as he sat in his chamber, the door slid open quietly. It was not the Queen. It was not an attendant. It was 3 figures in dark armor, their faces hidden, their movements swift. They carried blades, not spears. Assassins. Elias pushed to his feet, his body weak but his instincts sharp. One lunged at him, blade flashing. He dodged, the weapon cutting through the bed instead of his chest. Another swung low. He grabbed a chair, blocking the strike, the blade sparking against alien metal. His burned arm screamed with pain, but he fought anyway. A soldier did not stop. One assassin hissed in the Zareth tongue. "The prophecy must die." Elias's heart pounded. Even the rebels feared him. He swung the chair hard, striking one across the helmet. The figure stumbled back. Another cut his side, shallow but sharp. He gritted his teeth, refusing to fall. He grabbed the blade with his bare hand, blood spilling, and twisted until the weapon clattered to the floor. The glow of his blood spread across the blade. The assassins froze. In that moment, the doors burst open. Guards rushed in, spears raised. And behind them, the Queen herself strode forward. Her eyes blazing, she raised her hand, and with a single command, the assassins dropped to their knees, trembling. The Queen looked at Elias. His hand dripped glowing blood. His chest heaved with breath, but he still stood. She said nothing for a long moment. Then, with a voice filled with both awe and dread, she whispered, "The prophecy lives." The aftermath of the assassination attempt left Elias Hayes shaken. His burned arm still throbbed, and his body ached from the fight. Yet he was alive, protected even by the very empire that had captured him. The Queen had dismissed the assassins, sending them away with a single gesture, their bodies trembling, their weapons left behind. Her guards, once afraid of his blood, now looked at him with a mixture of awe and wariness. Some whispered quietly to one another, unsure whether he was savior or curse. Elias sat in the chamber, staring at his glowing wound, wondering if he would ever truly understand the Zareth people, or his own place among them. The Queen appeared again, moving with the quiet authority of someone who owned the room without speaking. She did not come with attendants this time, her glowing eyes fixed on him. "You survived," she said, her voice calm yet edged with something sharper than any blade. "I had to," Elias replied. There was no other choice. She studied him for a long moment. "You fight like humans fight, desperate, unyielding, stubborn. It is dangerous and yet admirable." He looked away, uncomfortable under her gaze. "I don't know about admiration, I just survive." The queen took a slow step closer. "And yet surviving has brought you here into the heart of my palace, among my people. Your survival is no longer yours alone. It carries weight," Elias swallowed. Weight was the last thing he wanted. He had spent his life carrying duty, but this was different. Over the following days, the queen summoned him often. Sometimes they spoke of trivial matters, the stars, the empire, the ways humans fought and built. Sometimes they spoke of serious things, the prophecy, the future of her people, the unrest among her factions. Elias learned quickly that not all Zareth feared him. Some avoided him, whispering in the corridors about the burning blood. Others watched him openly, their curiosity tempered by caution. The queen, however, treated him differently. She did not fear him. She studied him, questioned him, and occasionally allowed herself a rare smile when he answered honestly. One afternoon, she brought him to the palace garden. It was unlike any garden he had seen before. The ground was smooth, glowing with faint light, and strange silver trees arched overhead, their leaves shimmering in shades of violet and blue. Crystal fountains flowed without water, their shapes bending light like liquid diamonds. "You humans are strange," Elias said, looking around. "You fight so fiercely, yet build beauty like this." The queen's lips curved faintly. "And you think we are not fierce in battle?" "No," Elias admitted. "You are frightening when you fight. But this is different. It shows another side," she nodded. "Yes, strength and beauty do not always come from the same place, but they can exist together. That is why I protect you. You are both dangerous and necessary," Elias frowned. "Necessary? For what?" "For understanding," she replied simply. "You carry human ways in your heart. Your courage, your honesty, your will to survive. These things are rare here and they are feared, but they are also the key to what may come next. My people need to see that strength does not only come from fear." Her words struck him. Elias had lived his life among humans thinking his courage was normal, expected. Now he realized that what he considered ordinary could inspire or terrify an entire alien empire. That night, Elias was summoned again. The palace felt quieter than usual. The guards who had once dropped their spears now lined the hallway, silent but alert. They looked at him with respect, though some still trembled when his glowing wound was visible. The queen spoke softly. "You are no ordinary man, Elias Hayes. You survived battles that would have broken others. You fought when others fled. You endured pain that would have made most surrender." "I did what any soldier would," Elias said, though his voice lacked conviction. "I didn't survive to inspire legends. I survived to live." The queen shook her head. "And yet that is what makes you remarkable. You do not seek power. You do not seek fame. You only exist, and that is enough to change the hearts of others." She turned away, walking slowly toward the window. The silver light of the alien sky reflected in her eyes. "I fear for you," she said quietly. "Not because you are weak, but because so many fear you. They do not understand. They will try to control you, or destroy you." Elias felt a chill. He had not expected concern from the queen of an empire. Yet here it was, real and personal. Days passed, and the palace grew more restless. Rumors of the prophecy spread like wildfire. Some factions whispered that Elias must be eliminated before the prophecy could take hold. Others argued for careful observation, fearing what might happen if he were harmed. Elias moved carefully through the halls, always aware of unseen eyes. Every glance at his glowing wound reminded him of the danger that surrounded him. Yet with the queen's guidance, he began to learn her ways. She taught him their customs, their language, and the subtle art of understanding their politics. With every lesson, he gained insight into the empire he had once thought so alien. He began to see the beauty in their discipline, the complexity in their rules, and the reason why they feared him. One evening, a young guard approached him quietly. He lowered his eyes, speaking softly in broken human words. "Human, you are strong, but danger comes. Others, they do not understand." Elias nodded. "I know, I can feel it." "But I'm not afraid of them." The guard hesitated, then bowed slightly. "Your courage, it gives hope." Elias looked at him, feeling a strange warmth. Humans rarely said such things. Aliens even less. Perhaps the Queen was right. His presence was changing things already. A week later, the Queen summoned Elias to witness a council meeting. Factions of her empire had gathered, discussing the threats of rebellion and unrest. Elias had expected hostility, even violence, but what he saw surprised him. The leaders spoke with caution, carefully weighing words, debating not just strategy but morality. They argued over the prophecy, some calling it a threat, others a warning. And through it all, the Queen remained calm, her eyes occasionally flicking to him. When one counselor suggested that he be removed from the palace for safety, the Queen's voice cut through the room. "No," she said, "he remains. The prophecy is not yet proven, but the man is alive, unbroken. He has earned our attention, not our fear. We will watch. We will learn. And if destiny comes, we will face it together." Murmurs filled the room, some of awe, some of quiet fear. Elias felt the weight of every eye upon him. He could have bowed, could have spoken, could have apologized. Instead, he only stood, silent but steady. In that moment, he realized that he had become more than a prisoner. He had become a symbol, a human among the stars, carrying not only his life, but the potential to change an entire empire. That night, Elias returned to his chamber, exhausted but alert. He touched the hardened cover on his arm, the glow still faint beneath. The wound pulsed gently as if alive. He understood now why the Queen had called him necessary. He was dangerous, not because he wanted to be, but because he existed. His courage, his survival, his will, they were all forces the Zareth could neither ignore nor easily control. And the Queen, she trusted him. Trust. It was a strange feeling. He had rarely experienced it, even among his own people. Yet here in the palace of an alien empire, he felt it. The Queen had risked much to protect him. She had defied her own people, defied the fear of her guards to keep him alive. Elias realized that trust and fear often walked hand in hand, and sometimes they were two sides of the same coin. The following days were quieter, yet tense. Assassins had not returned, but the presence of unseen eyes remained. Factions whispered, guards watched, and the glow of his wound continued to pulse under the alien light. The Queen summoned him often now, not only to learn about humanity, but to speak about the future. Together they discussed strategy, morality, and the fragile balance between fear and loyalty. Through it all, Elias learned that leadership was more than power. It was vision, patience, and courage, and perhaps, just perhaps, humans and Zareth could learn from one another. He had arrived as a prisoner, wounded and alone. Now he was something else entirely, a symbol of hope and fear, danger and trust, prophecy and choice. Elias Hayes had survived the impossible. But survival was only the beginning, and the galaxy was watching. The palace was alive with tension. The whispers of rebellion had grown louder, reaching even the high halls where the Queen held court. Factions within the Zareth Empire argued that Elias Hayes, the human with the burning blood, was too dangerous to remain. Some called for his immediate execution. Others demanded his exile. But the Queen had made her choice. Elias would stay. Elias himself understood the risks. Each day he felt the weight of unseen eyes. The glow beneath his hardened wound pulsed faintly under the crystal light, a constant reminder of the prophecy and the danger it carried. He could feel the fear in the guards, the curiosity in the attendants, and the tension among the council. Yet he was alive. And more than that, he had begun to understand the power of his presence. One evening, the Queen summoned him to the War Council chamber. It was vast, with walls of black crystal and veins of blue fire. Leaders from the major factions had gathered, their armor polished, their expressions hard. The Queen spoke first. "The prophecy has begun," she said. "Elias Hayes stands among us. He is not enemy or savior yet, but his existence carries consequences. You may fear him or you may learn from him. That is your choice." A counselor, tall and stern, spoke. "Your Majesty, the human is dangerous." "He is not of our world. His blood glows. He survived battles that would have killed any Zareth warrior. If we do not act, he may bring ruin to our empire." Elias stood silently, his arm throbbing under the hardened cover. The glow beneath was faint but persistent. He could feel the weight of their fear pressing down on him. The Queen raised a hand. He has not acted against us. He has not drawn his strength to harm. He only exists. That is enough to change fear into understanding. Are you willing to learn, or will you let fear rule your judgment? The room fell silent. Even the strongest of the counselors could not answer. As the days passed, unrest grew. Rebel forces moved quietly through the city, plotting against the Queen and by extension Elias. The palace was on high alert. Every corridor, every hall, every courtyard became a potential battlefield. Elias trained tirelessly despite his wound. He had learned the Zareth fighting techniques, adapting them to his own style. He practiced not only with weapons but with strategy, reading the movements of the guards, understanding the palace's layout, and anticipating potential attacks. The Queen watched him closely, sometimes training alongside him in the gardens. Her movements were graceful, precise, and deadly, yet she treated him as an equal, correcting his stance, teaching him patience, and occasionally allowing a rare smile when he learned quickly. "You are learning fast," she said one evening, after a long training session. "Faster than I expected." Elias wiped sweat from his brow. "I have to. If this prophecy is real, I need to be ready. I don't want anyone to die because of me." The Queen's eyes softened. "Then you understand the weight of survival, Elias Hayes. Not just your own, but others. That is the true test of courage." Finally, the moment of truth arrived. Rebel forces struck at dawn, moving swiftly toward the palace. Their goal was clear: kill Elias, destabilize the Queen, and seize power. The alarm sounded through the halls. The guards rushed to their positions, their spears gleaming. Elias stood beside the Queen in the central chamber, ready to face what was coming. "Are you ready?" the Queen asked. Elias nodded. "As ready as I'll ever be." The doors burst open. The rebels surged forward, their weapons flashing. The glow of Elias's wound pulsed brighter under the crystal light, almost as if responding to the danger. He moved quickly, striking with precision. He dodged, blocked, and countered with the techniques he had learned. Every movement carried both human instinct and Zareth training. The rebels were skilled, but Elias was relentless. Beside him, the Queen fought with unmatched grace. She was a force of nature, striking with speed and strategy, directing her guards and creating openings for Elias to move. Together, they formed a formidable team, human and alien, united against those who would destroy them. The battle raged through the palace. Sparks flew as blades clashed, walls shook under the weight of heavy strikes, and cries of fear and defiance echoed. Elias felt his wound burning again, but he refused to falter. Each movement was precise, fueled not by anger but by survival and duty. At one point, a rebel lunged at the Queen, blade raised. Without thinking, Elias intercepted, throwing himself in the way. The blade grazed his arm, cutting through the hardened cover. Pain exploded, but he held firm, pushing the attacker back. The Queen's eyes met his. She nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of his courage. "You stand for more than yourself," she said. Elias did not respond. He only fought. By the time the sun rose fully, the rebels had been repelled. The palace was battered but intact. Guards and attendants tended to the wounded, while the Queen walked through the halls assessing the damage. She stopped before Elias, who was leaning against a wall, bloodied and exhausted. "You survived," she said. "I had to," Elias replied, voice hoarse. "I couldn't let them win." The Queen studied him, her glowing eyes filled with something between pride and awe. "You are more than I imagined. You are the human of legend, the one whose blood burns, whose courage inspires, whose choices shape destiny. You have proven yourself, not by prophecy but by action." Elias swallowed, feeling the weight of her words. He was no savior, yet he had protected her and her people. He had chosen not only to survive but to stand with her. In the days that followed, peace slowly returned. The palace rebuilt itself, the council quieted, and the guards' fear transformed into respect. Elias's wound healed fully, though the faint glow remained beneath the skin, a reminder of the battle and of what he had become. The Queen invited him to the central hall, where she spoke before the gathered leaders. "Today we have witnessed courage," she said, "not born of prophecy but of choice. Elias Hayes, a human, stood with us. He did not seek power nor glory. He sought only to live and to protect. His actions have shown us that strength is not only in might but in will, courage, and honor. Let his presence guide us forward." The council bowed, some reluctantly, some with genuine respect. The guards raised their spears in salute. Even the attendants whispered words of admiration. Elias felt a strange warmth. He had arrived as a prisoner, an outsider. Now he was recognized, not as a hero of legend, but as a human who had earned respect through courage. The queen approached him after the ceremony. She did not speak immediately. She only looked at him, her eyes glowing softly in the hall's crystal light. "You could leave," she said at last. "Return to your people, back to your world. The choice is yours." Elias paused. He thought of his home, his family, the crew he had lost. He thought of humanity, scattered across the stars, fighting to survive. And then he looked at the queen, and at the people he had helped protect. He saw the possibility of unity, of understanding, of a future where humans and Zareth could stand together rather than against each other. "I will stay," he said finally. The queen's lips curved into a rare smile. "Then we face the future together." In the months that followed, Elias became a bridge between two worlds. He trained the Zareth soldiers in human tactics, shared human knowledge of diplomacy, and learned the ways of the Zareth. The palace, once a place of fear, became a place of cautious hope. His glowing wound became a symbol, not of fear, but of courage. Guards who had once dropped their spears now stood tall beside him. Rebels learned that humans were not merely invaders, but beings capable of honor and loyalty. And the queen, she trusted him completely. They worked together, leading the empire with wisdom and fairness. Elias had chosen to stay, to protect, to live with courage, and in doing so, he had changed the course of the galaxy. He had arrived as a soldier, wounded and alone. He remained a soldier, yes, but now also a symbol of hope, unity, and the human spirit. For in the end, it was not prophecy, not legend, not glowing blood that saved the day. It was choice, courage, and the refusal to give in to fear. Elias Hayes had survived the impossible. He had protected the queen, and together they forged a future neither human nor Zareth could have imagined alone. The galaxy watched, and for the first time, it felt hope.